Guy Hudson was a very busy guy, and today we'll be figuring out just how busy he was getting in Brazil. Welcome back to The Roottrees Are Dead, Roottreemania. Wow, we have 5 things in evidence, so let's get in there. Okay, so we have pictures. This is the one from Chris Rafferty with Guy, his dad, and some woman that might be one of the mistresses to Guy, secretaries to Guy. One the same apparently. We have Guy again. And some people here. It's just from the magazine, but apparently it's a Christmas thing. So we have to watch out for Christmas related situations. And we have Guy and Zach. And again, some other woman that will probably also be one of the mistress's secretaries. So this is probably closer to when Guy takes over from Zach then, or something like that. So yeah, we have like a timeline that first Guy Hudson comes in as special management, and then next year after he replaces Zach. So yeah, that picture might be from around that time, because then Zach just left and checked out, right? He wouldn't be around much more after he stopped being president. And then we have Picotee, uncensored, but still no article about the fish. It's an interview with Cissy Sanchez, an author. She was hired to write a book about Guy Hudson. Okay, let's get our Guy page ready. You claim to have been paid a significant amount to write a book about one of the Roottrees, Guy Hudson. He was president for a short period at the end of the 1970s, right? Yeah, I met him on New Year's Eve, actually, the last night of 1978. That gives us some of a timeline about what she might be talking about. Guy liked to throw big parties. I was just coming off of Changed Man, that's one of her books, and looking for my next project. When his wife learned who I was, she invited me to a party and they cornered me to talk about a book. This was the first time anyone recognized me for my work. I had finally made it. The book they asked me to write sounded great, but then none of the stuff that made him interesting was allowed to stay. Chop chop, snip snip. Anything with even the slightest threat to Guy's image ended up a gonzo. What was the stuff that made him interesting? At his core, Guy was not complicated. In fact, I think I could boil him down to 2 traits. First, he wanted to be seen as the second coming of Elias Roottree. A second, he'd never be satisfied living the life needed to be seen that way. He had his fortune and good looks, and he really liked to exploit that to pick up women. But he couldn't let anyone else know, so it cost him a lot to cover it up. That was the only interesting aspect of Guy. He was James Bond trying to convince people he was Mr. Rogers, I guess? Mr. Rogers, really? Maybe that's not the best metaphor. But Elias Roottree was boring as hell and all about family. Well, he may have not been actually all about family. Guy did everything he could to be seen that way. After I submitted my first draft, he sent me this garbage book, The Roottree Legacy, with Elias on the cover. The last time he and I met, he had even switched out his orange suits for one of the same green ones Elias wore. Remember Fancy Flavors? Guy knew that part of Elias' legacy was 5-piece flavor, so that's what Guy tried to do. Guy was a disaster here, but it was actually somewhat popular in Brazil for whatever reason. In Christmas 1979, he went to Brazil to open the Roottree Brasil factory, okay? So that might be that Christmas picture we just saw. Guy was always hopping around the world trying to recreate that success. So how come the book never came out? It's complicated. I had an out in my contract. Surprisingly, Guy signed the contract my lawyers wrote without running it by anybody in his legal department. I could pull my name off the book at any time, but Guy still got the content. After I left, it probably got a lot harder to convince any real publisher to give it their time. He was the president, right? Do you know why he never released it himself? If I had to guess, his family very wisely put a stop to it. Mid-1981, months after I had already moved on, he called me back and showed me a final draft. Do you know how expensive it is to publish one copy of a book? It had my name on it in big, shiny, embossed letters, like all problems in his life. Throwing money at me was his attempt to win me back. But it had half the page count and the narrative was torn to bits. No thanks. The dinner was good. Imported steak that likely cost as much as a month of my mortgage. and we all got pretty drunk. He sent his mistress, Susie something, into the bathroom to proposition me. Okay, well, I guess we'll save her for later. Poor girl, I remember her from our trips overseas. She was too good for him. Anyway, he died soon after, and that was the last it ever came up. Okay, so in mid-1981, he had a mistress called Susie, but she was around for longer because they're saying while she worked with him on the book, she was already there. What can you tell us about the family? An insight into the scandals from the recent book by Sam Matson? I actually haven't read it. I just skimmed the section on Guy to see why people were suddenly calling me up to ask about the man. I'd said she did well for what she had to work with. She only had rumors where I spent time tailing him. Sometimes he knew, sometimes he didn't. He invited me to join him when dealing with Roottree Brasil, but I actually had people on him when he went to Australia, France, and China too. He was all over, and we're gonna be tracking people from all over the world. When he met with someone, I'd figure out who they were and how they were involved. Dudley saw if a meeting happened when he didn't want me to be around. Despite his best effort, I got the whole truth, including things even his family never knew. For example, the daughter of his business partner in Australia, I think her name was Robin. He and she definitely spent a few nights together he didn't want his family to know about, but I did. Madsen got things wrong. Sam mentions Guy's affairs and treats him like most people would logically think to treat them. Like the infidelity was a problem for Patricia. When his wife first approached me though, it wasn't to talk, if you get my meaning. On paper and in public it was a marriage like any other, but in reality it was more of a mutually beneficial arrangement. They got both what they wanted out of it. The same thing. What was that? I'm assuming I only have to spell it out so you can get it in writing for your readers. Women. Patricia enjoyed the company of women, and the swinger scene made that more accessible. I told her I wasn't interested in her and Guy. I found out later that if I had said yes, her next question would have been whether or not her husband actually had to be there too. Guy, on the other hand, was seen in traditional marriage. At the same time, he could bed any woman that found him charming. I can assure you that was exactly the type of marriage he was interested in. Okay, so she just married this guy to be like, okay, I'm officially married to a dude, leave me alone, whatever, family, society, but we just actually go out together and get some women for ourselves. Well, this only has a value of like 2, which yes, it gives us a name for Susie and the different locations, like people that Guy may have been seeing. Okay, so what did we learn from that? We learned that he was doing international business and Brazil for Christmas. Now we have a Christmas picture, which we have a picture of people on it, which means likely is that the people are somehow on this board, right? Because we were getting a picture of people that are going to get used. So it's potential if we track down more about Roottree Brasil, we will get some of that. We also have Susie that he was with in mid-1981, so he died in 82, so it's possible Susie is somewhere here, but we don't know enough about her to really enter anything. And we have Robin in Australia. Okay, so we have the alternative picture for Chris Rafferty when he was a child, and it's also an alternative picture of his dad Clark, and that's also an alternative picture of Guy Hudson, and there was also, that's another picture of him, and that's another picture of him. And there was also, yes, an alternative picture of Zach. And the boy is an alternative picture for this guy, but we can't enter it yet because he's not locked in. And then we have lots of women that, yes, we will need to sort out into this tree likely, because that's all to do with Guy's adventures, let's say. Okay, let's look up Roottree Brasil and see where this thread goes. It's Roottree Brasil. Sometimes erroneously referred to as Roottree Brasil. It's one of the companies created to manufacture and distribute Roottrie candy. It was developed as part of the Roottrie Everywhere initiative near the beginning of 1979. Unlike some of the other Roottrie Everywhere results, Roottree Brasil seems to be a success. You do some rough translating and find a significant amount of information about it. Brazil was the only region in which caviar flavored 5 pieces were a hit. The primary reason that the factory still exists to this day is to solely create that flavor, which comes in its own standalone pieces bagged with Portuguese writing. A small town named Alvalagos, near the municipality of São Bernardo de Campo, became the location chosen by the Roottrie Candy Company after a newly elected local politician named Edson Soares heard that they were planning a new factory and petitioned them in early 1979. The factory was controversial as locals did not want it there. The Rootrees visited Brazil around Christmas and managed to break ground on the project. Since then, however, it's been operating relatively smoothly except for 2 incidents. First was Incendio do Boro in 1982. A second was an unsuccessful strike in 1995 that involved all of the factory workers being replaced. The factory was originally built and run, according to paperwork at the time, by a small company named Nova Corporação de Doces Brasil. I don't speak Portuguese either, which literally translates to New Brazil Candy Corporation. This company no longer exists, not much information has ever existed about it, and the Roottree is now Roottrie Brasil entirely. Okay, so we have the town. Okay, it's a real place in Brazil. A game designed by the name of Jeremy Johnson looked up cities in Brazil and had a lot of manufacturing and took your pick of something. He did not want to offend any Brazilians with the tale he was writing that involved corruption and politics. So the small town name he made up, where the factory was located, was invented by mixing 2 other regions, Interlagos and Alveranga. Okay, so there's a few things around the game where like you look something up and they're like, oh yeah, that's just game designers made this up to do this. I do actually wonder, can we look this guy up? Yep, they have a page for themselves on the internet. This game is inspired by Obra, Dinn and her story. Yes, it is. I hope it stands on its own and it feels like more of an homage than a rip-off. Thank you to Lucas Pope and Sam Barlow. You both ran so I could walk. Okay, so this is a little history from the designer and what it is. If you're seeing this message, please come to the game's Discord and simply type I found the thing all in capital letters in the I found the thing channel, thanks. Okay, may have to do that later. Anyway, back to what we're actually doing. So we have Edson Soares. He was a Brazilian politician. You find a dissertation published by a college student as part of their PhD in history. It focuses on the rise of democracy in Brazil. It seems up until 1988, Brazil was run by the military, and the politics during that time were often a hotbed for corruption and nepotism. The paper tells of a few politicians at the time, including Edson. Edson is a former mayor of Alvalagos, Brazil. Before politics, he was a manager at an automotive manufacturing plant for a major American car company. He was put in charge of Alvalagos by the military government in 1973. As mayor, he used his manufacturing background and knowledge of American business to establish new factories, distribution plants, and other business ventures in the area. This had 2 side effects. First, he became quite rich. Second, many locals were forced to be relocated. Okay. I was like, oh, maybe it's not bad that he's bringing business to the area, but it sounds like he's bringing business to benefit himself and not maybe benefit people who live there as much. This did not make him a popular mayor. In what the paper speculates was a move to counteract his unpopularity. His wife, Sonia, was discreetly put in charge of a television station called Teleraid. Okay, so you have bad press, so why not control the press as well? He often used this connection to ensure supporters would appear on local television, spouting his beliefs and emphasizing his political victories. He remained in office until 1988, where he was defeated in the first election after the military government was no longer in control. After this election loss, he quickly left town. It is not known where he has gone, but the dissertation even speculates he likely fled to stay alive. Yeah, I mean, if they didn't like you, then who knows what was waiting for you there. He's a potential for the person that's in the picture with Guy, because they were doing business then. What's this? Translates to maple fire. Okay, the factory was attacked and set on fire. It destroyed about 2/3 of the production floor, and locals claimed that the smell was like mix of burning plastic and maple syrup. The factory was repaired and continues production to this day. At the time, it was unknown why this happened, but last year's a new special did list these incidents as well as a few others in the small town as backlash to perceived corruption in the government at the time. According to the report, the mayor of the city was found to be receiving a cut of the factory profits. Well, yes, obviously. They did it as a business dealing with him to get it going. Okay, so this is nothing really important. I'm not sure if the... Yes, it's part of Roottrees everywhere, so we already have this. Okay, so her name would have been... There doesn't seem to be anyone relevant with a name you can find. However, Spider Search just returned a page that lists a news anchor in Brazil named Flavio Soares, whose mother name was Sonia. Okay, what about the TV station? Telerade is a former television station in Brazil. It came into being in the 1970s after vacuum was created due to the removal of a different network at the hands of the Brazilian military dictatorship. Due to lack of resources online, you don't have much to go on about who ran it and when. Okay, what about this Soares guy? We got printing. Flavio Soares is a young Brazilian newscaster with a bit of a cult following. The discourse surrounding him is, to put it in polite terms, lewd. There is a website about something called fan fiction that has a small section dedicated to him. Fan fiction, what's that? It seems that women, and some men, of a wide variety of ages and writing skill tend to find him worthy of inclusion in their stories. You skim some of the tales there and learn that a common thread is that he's currently dating a supermodel named Ashley York. Many stories seem to either ignore her existence or get her out of the picture rather quickly. I wonder why. There are also other more traditional fan sites that list some things about him, including his age, 18. He's 18, he's just 18, and people are already having fanfiction about him. Like, calm down. His zodiac sign is Libra. His food is grilled steak, and his mother name is Sonia. Also, it seems that Flavio translates to golden-haired. Like, or is that a reference to, like, guys? Because he had, like, I guess he was more red-haired, but yeah, something about it. And yes, there's a picture of him, so it's been added to the evidence. Now, they're being specific that his age is 18 and his zodiac sign is Libra. So yeah, guy is there Christmas 1979, at least like the first time. So 18 years from that does put us in about 1997, 8. His zodiac sign is a Libra. So, okay, so it puts him, his birthday, end of September to end of October. So actually, he is 18 now. But his birthday, it's August now, so he has a birthday upcoming where he's going to be 19, so he's 19 this year, which further puts him closer. And obviously, being born end of September to October would put his date of conception closer to like January, February. So, and we know that guy, obviously, he went there for Christmas to start open the factory or whatever. But it talked about him, taking long trips and stuff like that, and obviously that they had a factory and whatever would give him more reason to visit. So there is potential here for this guy to be guy's child as well. I'm mostly taking this from they said there was a Christmas picture. Here guy is on a picture on a Christmas picture with some people, and he went for Christmas to Brazil. And we know that if people have pictures, they're gonna be on the trees, so immediately suspicious when I get any information about people there. So where does that put us? And yeah, we get a picture of him here. He's just 18, going 19, and he's already like a news anchor with big following. It's interesting. Okay, Ashley is a British supermodel. She does ads. I guess like this is defunct, but the Teen Blast may have something about them then, because that's an active magazine. Ashley appeared on the cover wearing 3 months ago. No useful information, but she's dating Flavio. I was in Rio for a carnival and he was on one of the parade floats. I had no idea who he was, but I liked what I saw and told my people to invite him to the party I was going. I felt pretty stupid once I realized that we were going to his party, well, his mother's party. She runs a media empire down there called Miss Paulo. We searched that up. It's a massive media group owned by a mysterious woman called Sonia Alves. Seems that it's a common name in Brazil, so she shortened her name to Nia to stand out in the public's eye. According to the history page that focused on her company and vague, unsearchable details, Nia received a significant inheritance in the 1980s, or significant payout, and invested in the many different manufacturing businesses in her hometown of Brazil. At the same time, she had just begun to learn the ins and outs of running a television network. She continued to work in television until 1988, when Brazil begins its period of reform. She felt this was the perfect opportunity to launch her own media company using her investment and connections. Now her company owns television networks, magazines, newspapers, and advertising firms. So she's done well for herself. After doing some translating, the page about Nia lists her as unmarried. Okay, so she ditched the husband. It does not go into any other relationship history. Searching for Nia online, you learn that she stays out of the spotlight. She doesn't even appear at shareholder meetings. She sends a proxy. A very common name in some parts of the world. Would she be under this Nia name? That just it's here. If she's big business, could she be in that business watch? Yeah, owns many forms of media in Brazil under the umbrella of Transmissão São Paulo. Business Watch has mentioned her by name a few times. Most relevant appearance seems to be an article about the struggles of American media companies to do business with their foreign counterparts due to difference in laws. A few media groups and countries are discussed, including those in Africa and Middle East. And the Transmissão Paulo in Brazil is also discussed. The lack of freedom of speech laws in Brazil, there has been added bureaucracy in publishing certain stories. She's private about her identity and supposedly once used her connections to have a reporter fired from a rival network and blacklisted. The journalist claimed that this was to shut down the story he was doing about her personal life, including her marriage in 1973, who was not of her own choice. His research claimed that she was essentially had her husband forced upon her as a child bride at the age of 15. This was not outlawed in Brazil until 1990. It also claims that past appearances with her husband have been for show, where they do not live together, and that she resents her own parents for the arrangement. The final claim was that she must have made her money under the table through nefarious and possibly illegal means during Brazil's dictatorship, as his research uncovered that she could possibly not have earned enough to start a media company otherwise. After making this statement, the reporter went into hiding in fear of his safety. Yeah, so she got lots of money from the shady dealings of her husband, and now she turned it into more money, but she's basically hiding so that people can't do a piece on like, oh yeah, I remember that woman from when she did terrible things at my hometown, or whatever else was going on. We're fairly sure she fits on this tree here with her husband and her child Flavio. Now we can do some tree structure deductions. The factory thing is 1979 and the affairs are between 75 and 82, so more likely pushing her towards the later part of the affairs, and this goes in order. And also we know that she's married, so for example it cannot be this person. And we also know that she only had one child, because there's nothing that suggests she had any more. So it's more likely to be this section here than this section here. And also we have the picture of the husband on the Christmas photo. So again, little hint here, because there's a room for a husband's picture while the other husbands do not. So I think we have This is gonna be her here with her husband here. And this is gonna be the son. Let's put him here. So he is Hudson Soares. And now she goes by Alves. So that might have been her returning to her unmarried name after she got rid of her husband. And she's a what? Media mogul, sounds about right. And his name is Flavio. So he's named after his dad. And he's an anchor. News anchor. Yep. Okay, so we confirm Elias is the first affair, and yet that the Brazilian affair resulted in more than just an additional factory for the Roottree candy. And yeah, we've locked all of the optional pictures so they get out of our way. Booyah! Clark's
Sam reached
back.
out to me finally. I think I have you to thank for that one. My family's in a bit of a rough patch. Even though the candy is selling better than ever, everyone is fighting over the trust. The majority of us want to dissolve it. On paper, it seems like the right decision. The arguments about what to do next are endless and heated. More than a few Roottrees are worried about losing their wealth. I don't think we deserve it more than anyone else. I love my family, my wife, my daughters, even my son, who I hardly ever get to see. I want to keep them safe and secure, but I didn't do anything to deserve this fortune. Hell, I probably deserve it less than most. It took me way too long to get my life together. Okay, enough about me. Here's the deal. I can't stop the majority from voting one way or another. If you keep passing along potential Roottrees, I'll keep adding them to the list. On the other hand, there's been some leaps forward in genetics. It may sound like science fiction, but we can actually determine who's in the family just by testing their DNA.
Wow, that's crazy new technology.
What you've done so far has been very useful. Just keep filling out the tree and we'll prepare for the tests.
Okay, you didn't bring me anything. Okay, well, I guess we're all on our own. And they're saying you can get 8 more by yourself just from what we've given you. So everything is available for us to research now. I mean, we have lots of notes. We definitely need to figure out more about Guy Hudson's travels, I guess, in more countries, or about his secretaries. That will be good enough for now. And I will see you soon on another adventure.